Are American homes getting larger? Spoiler, no. Despite what you might see in glossy magazines or aspirational TV shows, the reality for most of us is far from palatial estates and sprawling mansions. Let's talk about your living space, the place you call home, where you unwind after a long day, and where life unfolds. Whether it's a house with a white picket fence and a cozy front porch, apartment in a bustling city center or a quiet suburban complex, or a tiny rented room, just big enough for a bed and a desk. You've seen the headlines. The average American home is getting bigger. It's a common narrative, often accompanied by images of grand modern homes. But if your coffee table is also your desk and your living room doubles as your bedroom, you know that's not your reality. The truth is often far removed from these generalized statements. So what's going on? Why the disconnect between the headlines and the lived experiences of so many? Are the stats lying? Are these numbers deliberately misleading us? Or is there something more nuanced at play? Sort of. The answer, as is often the case, lies somewhere in the gray area. The average size of newly built single-family homes is up, significantly in some areas, but that's only part of the story. It's a piece of the puzzle, but not the whole picture. The key word is newly built. These statistics focus solely on the homes that are currently being constructed, and we're actually building fewer homes than ever, especially affordable ones. Most new homes are built for the wealthy, with high-end finishes and expansive layouts, not for average Americans who are struggling to find affordable housing options. This skews the average upward, creating a false impression of what's typical, creating a misleading picture. It distorts our understanding of the housing landscape. It's like saying the average person at a party with Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Elon Musk is a billionaire, which sounds great on paper. Technically true, but totally misleading. It doesn't reflect the reality for the vast majority of attendees. The real story, the one that matters to most of us, a shrinking group is building ever larger homes catering to a specific affluent demographic, while most people are left squeezing into smaller spaces, struggling to find affordable options in increasingly competitive markets. The average is a statistical mirage, a deceptive figure that obscures the true state of affairs. In a desert of housing affordability, it's a mirage that vanishes as soon as you try to grasp it. So, no, let's be clear. We're not all moving into mansions. The reality is far more complex and for many far more challenging. Let's dig deeper into that word, average. It's a term we hear all the time, thrown around in news reports and market analyses. But what does it really mean when we're talking about something as personal and essential as our homes? Imagine a town, a perfectly ordinary town where 9 families live. They've all built modest homes, the kind you see lining streets in countless neighborhoods across the country. These are homes built for comfort, for raising families, for making memories. Now imagine that one day, a billionaire arrives and decides to build a mega mansion. We're not talking about a large house, we're talking about a palatial estate, a sprawling complex that dwarfs everything else in town. Suddenly, the average home size in this town skyrockets. The numbers tell a story of increasing prosperity, of bigger and better homes for everyone. But is that the reality? The truth is, only one person lives in that luxury. The other 9 families are still in their modest homes, unaffected by the billionaire's extravagant construction. The average is skewed, misleading, and ultimately, a distortion of the truth. And that's precisely what's happening nationwide in the housing market. This isn't just a hypothetical scenario, it's a reflection of the growing disparity in wealth and housing options. Developers often find that they can't generate substantial profits from building affordable homes. The margins are too thin, the returns too slow. As a result, they increasingly focus their efforts and resources on luxury properties designed for the wealthy elite. These high-end projects promise bigger profits and faster returns. The entire system, from financing to zoning regulations, is often subtly or not so subtly set up to incentivize the production of high-end homes. This leaves a significant gap in the market, failing to address what most people actually need: affordable, accessible housing options. So the next time you come across a headline proclaiming the average new home size is increasing, don't automatically picture your neighbors suddenly living in sprawling mansions. That's likely not the case. Instead, picture one giant house, a symbol of extreme wealth and inequality, quite literally replacing 3 smaller, more affordable ones. The average home size gets bigger on paper, creating an illusion of progress, but the reality is that fewer families are actually housed, exacerbating the existing housing crisis. It's a perfect example, a stark illustration, of how a single, seemingly straightforward number can completely obscure and hide the real, complex story behind the housing market. The market isn't healthy. In many ways it's fundamentally broken, failing to serve the needs of the majority. The average is a fantasy, a statistical mirage that obscures the underlying problems, and it's certainly not an accurate reflection of the lived experiences of most families and individuals seeking affordable and suitable housing. So, don't be fooled by the numbers. Look beyond the averages and understand the real dynamics at play in the housing market. Let's use cars as an example to illustrate how averages can sometimes be misleading. We often hear about average prices, average sizes, average incomes, but these numbers can hide a lot of variation. If the average new car price was an astonishing $150,000, you'd immediately know it's skewed significantly by a few luxury sales, right? A handful of ultra-expensive vehicles can drastically inflate the average. But when it comes to housing, we often forget this basic logic and accept the average at face value. We don't always consider the distribution of home sizes and prices. This luxury car fallacy, as we might call it, subtly tricks us into thinking everyone's living large in sprawling homes, when in reality, it's just the ultra-wealthy few who are significantly impacting that average. This misleading stat, this skewed average, unfortunately shapes policy decisions and public opinion, influencing how we perceive the housing market and what solutions we prioritize, ultimately masking a deepening crisis of affordability and access for many. If we blindly believe that homes are consistently getting bigger and more luxurious, we're far less likely to demand and advocate for affordable housing options and policies that address the real needs of the majority. So, next time you hear about the average home size or average home price, remember, it's a bit like judging a country's overall diet and health solely by the offerings on a Michelin-starred restaurant's menu. It's a skewed perspective. The real story, the important story, is what's actually happening for everyone else, for the vast majority of people who aren't living in those outliers. Now let's talk apartments. While single-family home construction lags, apartment building is booming, but the units are shrinking. New apartments are about 10% smaller than a decade ago. Developers cram more tiny units into buildings to maximize profits, as people sacrifice space for location or affordability. The result, more studios and one-bedrooms, while family-sized apartments disappear. The middle, classic mid-sized homes, is vanishing. We're building for the wealthy and for singles, but families are left out. The housing market is splitting in two. On one side, luxury mansions with every amenity imaginable. On the other, shrinking apartments and endless rental compromises. For most, housing is a source of stress, not status. The average home size stat hides this divide, making things look better than they are. It's like standing with one foot in ice and one in boiling water and saying you feel fine on average. When only extremes are being built, communities suffer, and the ladder of opportunity disappears. The middle is missing, and so is the American dream. Here's a twist. During recessions, the average new home size often goes up. Why? Because only the wealthy keep building, everyone else stops. The middle and lower markets vanish from the data, leaving only mansions. This is survivorship bias in action. So, a bigger average home size during tough times isn't a sign of prosperity, it's a warning sign. It shows who's left out, not who's thriving. The stat reflects entrenched wealth, not widespread success. The economy is telling on itself. So, are American homes really getting bigger? For most, absolutely not. Many are actually living in smaller spaces than ever. The myth of universal upsizing is built on misleading averages. The real story is inequality. The market serves the wealthy, not the majority. This isn't just a statistical quirk, it affects families, communities, and financial security. The bigger homes narrative is PR for a worsening crisis. Don't blame yourself for not keeping up. Look around who's building, and for whom. Are we building communities or just luxury commodities? The truth is more important and more urgent than any average.